Hello and welcome to Wednesday Warfare, where I review NXT and AEW Dynamite back-to-back and try and figure out which show won for the week. NXT begins with a bang this week as Adam Cole defends the NXT Championship against Finn Balor, who at this point I'm not entirely sure is still a heel. I feel like since his match with Matt Riddle at TakeOver, he's kind of regressed in the style of his promos and his mannerisms and his character. He's just kind of an athletic babyface again, or at least a tweener at the very least. Maybe it's because he's wrestling a more established heel Adam Cole in this matchup, but to me it's just a babyface Finn Balor. That's all I'm really getting from this one here. I know he was kind of sneaky in how he got the #1 contendership match. He capitalized on someone else's finisher to win that matchup. That's kind of a heel move, but besides that, I'm not really seeing any kind of difference in his styles. He just feels like a babyface again. Be that as it may, it's a really good match as expected. Cole keeps trying the Panama Sunrise, one even on the floor, but he keeps getting thwarted. At one point they do a collision into the barricade, into some extras on the front row. Finn looks to have the match won when all of a sudden Johnny Gargano appears on the stage and Balor looks like he's seen a ghost. And in that distraction, Cole capitalizes, hits the last shot to win and retain the championship. And then after the match, Gargano beats Balor a little bit with a chair and chases him off. I guess that answers my earlier question about Balor's face or heel status, unless they're going with another crappy, Johnny Gargano heel run like they did earlier this year. But, Gargano's back. We're going to restart the feud with him and Finn Balor. Great opening match here with Balor and Cole. Can't ask for much more than that. Up next, Killian Dane taking on Damian Priest in singles action. Kind of a follow-up to what happened in the triple threat with Pete Dunne at TakeOver. Priest got his ribs injured in that matchup. So the story here is Dane working on Priest's previously injured ribs. At one point, Dane hits a really odd-looking powerbomb. It basically kind of looks like an alley-oop, but with no backward momentum in that way. The way Priest just falls is kind of weird. Anyway, it's a pretty good match here. Priest wins with the Reckoning, which is basically his version of the Crossroads. And yeah, a good match there. Cameron Grimes taking on Kushida. It's the latest in their ongoing rivalry, the latest chapter of which saw Kushida commit the ultimate sin and steal Cameron's hat. This match is far more competitive than the last time these two guys fought, and here Grimes actually wins it with his trademark big-ass standing double stomp move. And Grimes looks really good here. I mean, both guys look good here in this matchup, and like I said, more competitive than what they had the last time. It's nice to see Grimes get a big win this week after a couple of straight weeks of basically fluky roll-ups. Io Shirai taking on Santana Garrett here. It's a pretty short and sweet match in which Io wins with the moonsault. Again, not quite sure how she's a heel in all this based on her style in the ring. And also kind of a sidebar, I feel like Santana was really ahead of her time. I feel like if the women's revolution, whatever, if that initiative had started maybe 5 or 6 years earlier than it did, I believe Santana would have been firmly in the place of that, as opposed to right now where she's there, but she's kind of developmental talent. I feel a lot maybe her best years are behind her. Around that time, like 5 or 6 years ago, I always saw her name coming up when it came to the number of top independent, unsigned ladies who never really got that chance in WWE. So now she's here, which is great, but you gotta wonder if they decided to put if they wanted to invest their time in women back then, like they did now, where would Santana be? We get another little commercial for the Worlds Collide tournament in the form of a match between Pete Dunne and Travis Banks. Oh goody, more wrestling I don't have time to watch. Be that as it may, this is a great match here. These two have a history, they have a chemistry, the action's very fluid, hard-hitting, great stuff. Pete Dunne hitting 2 bitter ends on Banks. The second one finally puts him away. Dakota Kai's interviewed backstage, and she says even though she got some staples in the back of her head from that nasty table fall last week at the hands of Mia Yim, at the end of the day, she still won that match officially, so she's going to hold that and she's going to rub it in people's faces. And she says she's got her eyes on the Women's Championship. Speaking of which, main event time for the NXT Women's Championship as Shayna Baszler defends against Rhea Ripley in a match that's been getting tons of build for weeks and weeks now, ever since just before Survivor Series weekend, in fact. Shayna's goons try and cause some mischief early in the match, but Rhea takes them out, but in the process it allows Shayna to start working over Rhea's arm pretty badly. We even get kind of like a doctor break to come and check on her, but she says no, she still has the fighting spirit. In the end of the match, we get a ref bump. Shayna DDTs Rhea on the chair. Still we get a kick out though. Rhea fights valiantly out of the Kirifuda clutch, looking like a total badass, hits her with an avalanche riptide to win, breaking Shayna's 415-day run with the championship. New women's champion. The fans and locker room flood the ring and celebrate with her in a really cool feel-good moment to end the year. I mean, it was a real feel-good match. I mean, it was just the story was told beautifully, how Rhea fought valiantly against Shayna against all odds, beating her to finally become the champion. I mean, God, the way they've been building this thing up and how much time they devoted to the build and on the network and the Survivor Series weekend, like if Rhea did not win the championship, that would have been the ultimate letdown. So nice way to end the show, having Rhea win the championship at 23 years old, which is a stupid young age to win a championship, but she's got that star quality about her for sure. AEW begins right off the bat, no opening sequence. You go right to the first match as Hangman Page and Kenny Omega take on the Lucha Brothers. More weird lower third hijinks with Hangman Page where it says, I don't know, make it say happy holidays or whatever. It's just really weird. It seems to be happening just with Adam Page at this point. And maybe that's planting seeds for a future storyline. They're playing up more of the tension between Page and Omega here, which last week, honestly, I didn't really notice except for the blind tag near the end. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention, but here they're definitely laying it on thick because every time they're going to make a tag, they're just like, staring daggers at each other. Ooh, tension, tag. Anyway, it's a really good match here. Great action between all four of these guys. At one point in the middle of the match, we get this glitchy moment here where you see Evil Uno kind of glitch into the frame for a second and the announcer's kind of play it off like a technical difficulty. Very interesting what they're doing with the Dark Order here. There's a malfunction at the junction. Page accidentally hits the buckshot on Omega. We get the package pile driver stomp combo on Omega for the Lucha Brothers to win. It's a fun opener, not quite on the level of what they were doing on the other show at the same time with Cole and Balor, but still entertaining as it is. Page and Omega are about to get into it in the ring when all of a sudden we see Pac on the screen with a microphone, and he tries to call out Omega saying, you're ducking me, you're not answering my challenge, so I'm going to do something here that's pretty bad. So he goes into Michael Nakazawa's dressing room, closes the door, and then we see Omega chase after him, and then we go to break, and then there's this whole scene going on, the picture-in-picture, where Omega chases after, he looks for Pac and Nakazawa, they're not there. The Lucha Brothers beat him down some more. Page chases them off. And that's pretty much the end of that scene. And here's something that it's finally kind of grating on me. Why are all these pivotal, interesting scenes happening in picture-in-picture during the commercial break? Which, if you're watching the replay, you don't see any of. Why did Nyla Rose powerbomb the referee through a table or onto somebody else in a commercial break? Why was Melanie Cruz getting her head shaved during a commercial break in picture-in-picture? There's all these big things, and we're going to see it a couple more times in this show as well. That seems to be there. It seems to be a big hang-up or a lack of communication or a lack of foresight between the producers who are stacking the show, the directors, the bookers, all these different things. That to me is one of the biggest issues I have with AEW right now, is that they'll do these important things in picture-in-picture and you just don't see it happen, or it's these things that should get proper airtime on the proper show, but we're not getting that. Up next, the Butcher and the Blade take on Cody and his new tag team partner, Darby Allin. He is the latest to join Cody in his fight against Triple B here. The match is okay. The big story is that Bunny keeps getting involved multiple times. There's a big "We Want Darby" chant as Cody takes all the heat. Finally, there's a big hot tag. Darby with the coffin drop on the Butcher. Cody with the Cody Cutter on the Blade. So Cody gets his win back against the Butcher and the Blade from last week. Good little match here. And apparently that on the January 1st show, they're going to have a rematch from Fyter Fest between Cody and Darby. And I'm like, why? Because there was no tension between those two guys here. What exactly is precipitating or preceding this matchup? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Awesome Kong's in her first match on Dynamite against local talent Miranda Alizé. Before the match, we see a Brandy Rhodes promo about the Nightmare Collective. We see that faceless bald man again showing up. That's definitely Dr. Luther, though. Last week, I had my suspicions it was Dr. Luther. This week, I could definitely tell, mostly because he does the finger point laughing thing. That's one of his trademarks. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Luther's been around for a long time in Japan, in Canada, in the States. He actually booked for Portland Wrestling in Oregon back when I was starting to wrestle. He gave me a shot in that show. I probably didn't deserve it, but I thank him very much for that. And so yeah, great to see Luther getting a shot here on the big stage on AEW. Anyway, it's a squiggity squash. Kong destroys the local talent. They cut off a piece of her hair, and that's that. We get a pre-taped interview between Jim Ross and Jungle Boy. They talk about how pressure makes greatness, and JR asks, what would your dad be thinking about this? Luke Perry, and, Jungle Boy talks about how he and his dad would talk about moments like this when he was trained to wrestle. Very nice interview. Then we go to that match as Jungle Boy takes on Chris Jericho. Kind of surprised they didn't wait till the main event for this one. Jericho makes his entrance, and here's some more picture-in-picture stuff. During the break, we see Sammy Guevara come out through a propped-up door for some reason. He's got cue cards, and they're reading the cue cards, and it says, people say they can't hear us during picture-in-picture. Does the network think we're stupid? The inner circle, and then the picture-in-picture is gone, and we get full-screen commercials. Like, come on, if you're gonna that's kind of cool. They try to capitalize on the picture-in-picture stuff, but they don't even get a chance to do the full joke, because then the picture-in-picture goes away. Like, why? Why do that? It's a real classic story with this matchup. The grizzled veteran taking on, the upstart, the plucky rookie newcomer kind of guy. It starts off with Jericho getting very dominant at the beginning, but Jungle Boy has his moments to shine here. In the end, Jericho's got Jungle Boy in the walls of Jericho for about a minute and a half, and Jungle Boy refuses to tap out. Time limit expires, and the 10-minute time limit, that was the whole crux of the thing, was Jericho saying that Jungle Boy couldn't last 10 minutes with Jericho. So it's a time limit draw. Jericho's mad, asks for 5 more minutes. The bell does ring, but we find out later that that was not official. So then Jungle Boy gets some more of his heat back. Jericho scampers off, and that's pretty much that. Then after the commercial break, we see Jericho on stage with Tony Schiavone, and Schiavone calls him out saying, oh, you said he couldn't last 10 minutes with you, and so, but Jericho's like, oh, I said he couldn't beat me. They're arguing about it, and then Chris changes the subject about Jon Moxley, reiterating the fact that the offer still stands for him to join the Inner Circle, and that he wants an answer on New Year's Day. We'll see where that goes, but the big story here is that Jungle Boy got a real big time to shine here against Jericho in his first AEW singles match. I think it was a great showing for Jungle Boy. It showed a little bit of what he's capable of, and I think that hopefully I would hope he gets more chances to shine in singles competition, because he's got a lot of star potential in the making there. Like, a lot of the pieces are there. I really want to see him do well, and this match with Jericho was a great first test. Backstage interview with the tag team champions, SCU. Daniels begins to talk, but then the Lucha Brothers appear. Pentagon is showing on his phone. They're replaying the Arabian moonsault botch from a couple of weeks ago, so he's rubbing that in Chris's face. Daniels wants to say something, but then he just kind of puts his head down and walks away. What could that possibly mean? And the more I think about it, the more I think that botched move off the ropes was intentionally done for storyline purposes. The more I analyze that move, the way Chris hit the ropes and fell seems like maybe he took that as safely as possible, and they're kind of showing the whole storyline, oh, maybe he can't hang anymore. Or either this is a botch and they're just running with it and making an angle out of the real life botch, or this is something that was intentionally done to build intrigue and maybe a one last ride for Daniels. Who really knows? Ladies' #1 contenders match up next as Chris Statlander taking on Britt Baker. As the match begins, we see another Dark Order graphic in the lower third. More confusion. It's a good competitive match here. Chris actually wins after hitting Britt with the Big Bang. They're really giving her a push here. They are, as opposed to sometimes you see a newcomer show up, get a couple of wins, and they're squashed pretty quickly after that, and their flames died out. Chris is actually getting a lot of momentum here, a lot of big consecutive wins. She's going to be facing Riho at some undetermined time as of right now. But yeah, really exciting that Chris is still getting that momentum. It's really nice to see. Then after the match, Tony Schiavone interviewing Chris. Chris just boops him. Brandy Rhodes shows up and reiterates her offer to Chris to join the Nightmare Collective. Chris rejects her. Awesome Kong, Melanie Cruz show up to distract her, and then when Chris turns back around, boom, heel to the eye. And so then Brandy just kind of walks off with one shoe in her hand. Sadie Gibbs comes down to try and check on Chris as that's happening, and that's pretty much it. So we'll see some more action, it seems, between Chris and the Nightmare Collective. I have a hunch they're going to cost her a championship match. Shawn Spears and Tully Blanchard backstage. Spears is absolutely giddy that there's actually a tag team division worth fighting for here in AEW, and he tells Tully he wants a tag team partner, so Tully's going to get on that for him. Who could it be? Leave your predictions in the comment section. Main event time, AEW Tag Team Championships on the line as SCU defend against the Young Bucks. This match is kind of weird because I think when you look at those two teams, you expect a lot more than what you got in this matchup. It was a good match. It was competently done, but I feel that, they kind of held a lot back. There weren't a whole lot of near falls or crazy big spots in this thing. It was like their kind of style of match, but it was very truncated. It was very abridged for what we would usually expect from those two teams. Very odd that it was in the main event because of that. And anyway, SCU hit the SCU later, and they win the match pretty clean. It was pretty non-dramatic for a Young Bucks match, honestly. Then after the match, the Dark Order appear. Evil Uno's in a suit. There's the Creepers. There's Stu Grayson. They all start beating down both those teams. Then out come Kenny Omega, Cody, and Dustin Rhodes. They all try to make the save, but they're all beaten down as well. Where's Hangman Page in all this? They're asking on commentary. More of that tension there with Adam Page. By the way, Alex Reynolds and John Silver are among the Creepers. gatekeepers. They're unmasked. It's an initiation, so they earn their masks after that whole bit there. And then at the end, Evil Uno reaches into, I believe it was Matt's mouth, and like, it looks like he's pulling something out. It's just like blood, like, you know, and that was how it ended. Like, that whole weird moment aside with the Evil Uno going into Matt's mouth, I think it was a strong segment. I think they did a really good job, like, building up the Dark Order for the last few weeks. This was the payoff to Chapter 1, where it's like we see these vignettes, we see how insidious they are, how they recruit people, and then all of a sudden we see them, you know, attack the biggest names in the company en masse at the very end here. I mean, I think that's a lot for the Dark Order right now, who are still kind of an unproven commodity in AEW, but the way they're building them up here and how this payoff happened here, I'm very interested in seeing where it goes from here. I'm not, you know, a lot of people are crapping on this. I'm not. I'm open-minded about this, and we're going to see where this goes. They've been built up. They made an impact here. You know, we can only try and predict where it's going to go in 2020. Time now for me to decide which show won for the week, NXT or Dynamite. And this week my pick is NXT. I feel that, you know, I've said this before on the show, usually AEW excels in the story and characters department while NXT's got the action locked down, the actual in-ring product. I feel that AEW's storytelling this week was not quite as good as it's been. I did enjoy it. The tension they're building with Hangman Page is interesting, stuff with the Dark Order is cool, or I'm curious about it at the very least, and nice to see Jungle Boy getting some time to shine. But besides that, I feel there was just some hiccups there. It just didn't feel like there was as much urgency or oomph to it as there was with NXT. I feel the NXT obviously brought their A game with the in-ring action. The opener was great. The main event was awesome. My whole question is, you know, where's the sizzle? Where's the characters? Where's the wild stuff? AEW's got that in spades. I want to see some NXT kind of do that as well. Like, just appeal to both sides is what I want to try and see NXT do here. Let's get some promos. Let's get some characters, you know. AEW had their moments, but NXT, I think, overall was a stronger show on the basis of what they brought in the ring. To make up for the lack of character stuff, AEW's wasn't as compelling this week for me. But what did you think about NXT and AEW this week? Let me know in the comments section below, and be sure to vote which show you thought was better by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.